Welcome to my channel. Your tutor Mariam is here. It's the fifth video of Introductory Physics 1 and the first video that I'm going to talk about the motion, which is the second subject of Introductory Physics 1. In this video, I'm going to talk about the position, velocity, and acceleration, and tell you guys how you can calculate velocity, position, and acceleration. So if you are new to Introductory Physics 1 and like to learn more, I highly recommend you to hit the subscribe button. Also, I appreciate it if you guys can hit the like button too. It helps me to make more videos. You ready? Let's get started. So, what is the position of the particle? Position of the particle is the location of the particle you have respect to the x and y axis, or the position of the particle you have respect to the location. What that means, I have a car, and if I want to tell you the position, I'm going to draw the x and y axis. I'm going to tell you the position of this car. And if I move the car, now I'm changing the position of the car respect to the x-axis, right? So can we have the positive or negative y or x-axis? Of course, it depends how you define your origin. And usually we define the origin in the 0, 0 right at the corner here, and then we define the particle. Now let's write down the position of the particle I have. So here, I'm gonna write down the position as a x and y axis, right? So it's gonna be x and y. Let's see what's the position of this particle here. So respect to the x-axis is gonna be a distance from the origin to the point I can see the particle. So I'm gonna imagine the center of the particle gonna be here, and then the distance from here to the center gonna be 5, right? So I'm gonna write it down as 5. And then for the y-axis is gonna be from the center of the particle right here. So this distance gonna be the y-axis, which is around 6.5, right? So now you know how to write the position of the particle. Now let's talk about the displacement. So I have a particle and I'm gonna move it from one position to the other position, right? So if I gonna tell you how much is change, I can calculate the displacement in x and y axis. How I'm gonna do that? Let's say the first position was 1, the second position was 2, right? So let's write down the first position of the particle. I'm gonna write it down as x1 and y1, right? Which represent the first position. So my first position was, the x-axis was 2, and then the y-axis was about 6.5, right? And the second position of the particle is x2 and y2. 2 represent the second position. It's going to be the distance of the center of the particle to the origin, right? Which is around 7. And then respect to the y-axis, it's around 8.5, right? So the displacement respect to the x-axis gonna be x2 minus x1. My x2 here is 7 minus x1 gonna be 2. So 7 minus 2 gonna be 5. And then delta y gonna be y2, which is 8.5 minus 6.5. which is equal to 2, right? So the delta x and delta y is equal to 5 and 2. So I know how much my particle is moved. But can I move this particle in a negative x and y axis? Of course you can do that. Let's see how we can write the displacement. So here I'm going to move the particle to the negative axis, right? So my x here is negative. Let's see how I can write it. So the first things I'm going to start with, I'm going to label it as number 1 and 2, right? So x1 and y1 equal to, so still the origin gonna be 0 and 0. So the position gonna be around 5 for x-axis. For y-axis is gonna be around 6, right? And then for the second position, or the new position, is gonna be x2 and y2, which is my x-axis is around, let's say is around 1 minus 1. It's not exactly 1, but let's say this is minus 1. And then the y-axis, just right here, gonna be 9, right? So delta x gonna be x2 minus x1, right? I want you guys be careful here. Now we're dealing with the negative axis, right? So my x2 gonna be minus 1, right? Minus 1 minus 5, right? So now this gonna be add together, they not be subtracted, okay? So it's gonna be minus 6, okay? And then for the delta y is gonna be y2 minus y1 equal to the y gonna be 9 minus 6 equal to 3, right? So the displacement gonna be delta y and delta x gonna be minus 6 and 3. So the trick for the displacement in the negative axis is this part. So they're gonna be subtracted, not added together. So be careful about this part here. All right, now I'm going to grab my particle and talk about the motion instead of the displacement, right? So instead of this representing this particle in the x and y axis, I'm going to represent it in a time and displacement in the x position, right? Of course, I can use the y axis. There is no problem with that. But I just chose the x-axis, right? Let's move the particle to the different position. The same things we did. I'm gonna label it as 1 and 2, right? So for the position, for the first position, is gonna be x1 and t1, which is the 4 and 2, right? And for the second position, x2 and t2, it's gonna be 10 and 8, right? So now if I'm gonna write down the velocity, which the symbol is v, is gonna be x2 minus x1 divided by T2 minus T1, right? So my x2 here is 10 minus 4, right? And then time gonna be 8 minus 2. So it's gonna be 6 divided by 6, which is 1. And then the unit's gonna be meter per second, right? All right, let's talk about the acceleration. I'm gonna grab my particle, and this time I'm gonna represent it as a velocity and time, right? So now I'm dealing with the acceleration. So what you guys need to be careful here, it's how x and y axes represent the different things in physics. Like if you're dealing with velocity or time, if you're dealing with the position of the particle as an x and y axis, if you're dealing with the velocity and time, because if you divided them together, then you're gonna end up with the acceleration or velocity. Okay, so now let's move the particle to the different position. Again, the same things. We're gonna have the first position, the second position, acceleration symbol is A, and then it's gonna be V2 minus V1 divided by T2 minus T1. We're gonna end up with the same answer in the previous slide because I didn't change the position of this particle. So the acceleration gonna be 1, which is the m over s squared, right? That's the units for the acceleration. So if you guys don't know about the units and the symbol, I talk about it in the second and third video, and also I solve a couple of examples. So you're welcome to go and watch those videos. Yup, so in the next couple of videos, I'm gonna solve a couple of basic challenge problem. If you guys like my video, please hit the like button and also subscribe. I'll see you in the next video.